Have you ever paused for a moment and realized that every step, every turn, every moment that brought you here was a choice? Not fate, not luck, not the unpredictable winds of circumstance, but the quiet, consistent power of choice. We stand today exactly where we have chosen to stand. Life, my friends, is not something that happens to us. It's something we build one decision at a time. Each morning, when the sun rises, it offers us the same opportunity, the same blank page. But what separates those who live with purpose from those who drift aimlessly is the recognition that choice is the architect of destiny. Most people don't fail because of lack of opportunity. They fail because they refuse to choose. They float, waiting for direction, while the men and women who decide, who take control of their choices, write their own story of success. You see, the law of choice is as certain as gravity. What you think, you become. What you dwell upon, you attract. When you choose fear, your life bends toward limitation. When you choose faith, courage, and effort, your life expands beyond imagination. Every great achievement began with a decision, a choice to believe, to start, to endure. Success doesn't come from waiting for the perfect conditions. It comes from choosing to act in imperfect ones. Most people never truly decide what they want. They drift, tossed by circumstance, wondering why life feels uncertain. But those who sit quietly with themselves, who dare to ask, "What do I really want?" they begin to understand the law. The moment you decide, truly decide, life rearranges itself to honor that choice. People appear, opportunities align, doors open, because clarity of choice creates motion in the world around you. But there's another truth. Choice comes with responsibility. You can't blame your past, your parents, your boss, or your environment. The moment you do, you surrender your greatest power, the ability to choose differently. Each time you complain, you reinforce helplessness. But each time you take ownership, you grow stronger. Responsibility is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. So, wherever you stand today, in joy or struggle, success or doubt, understand this: you are exactly where you have chosen to be. And if that choice no longer serves you, then choose again. Choose better thoughts. Choose greater action. Choose faith over fear, discipline over comfort, creation over complaint. Because the law of choice, like every great law of nature, always responds, not to what we wish for, but to what we decide. There comes a moment in every life when one begins to realize that nothing, absolutely nothing, happens by mere accident. The life we live, the job we have, the people we attract, even the way we think and respond to challenges are not strokes of fate, but the cumulative results of the choices we've made, knowingly or unknowingly. Look closely at where you are right now. Whether you find yourself in comfort or in struggle, in progress or in pause, it is not destiny that brought you here. It is choice. The world has a strange way of mirroring back the quality of our decisions. Each path we've taken, every yes and no we've spoken, every opportunity embraced or ignored, has quietly assembled the life that stands before us today. From the moment we wake in the morning, we begin to choose. We choose what thoughts will greet us before our feet touch the floor. We choose what attitude we'll carry into the day. We choose whether we will act with purpose or drift in reaction to the world's noise. The astonishing part is that most people make these choices unconsciously. They are carried along by habits, moods, and the influences of others, rarely stopping to recognize the tremendous power they hold in their own hands. The difference between a person who lives with direction and one who merely survives each day lies not in luck, not in talent, but in the awareness and quality of their choices. You may think that some circumstances are beyond your control, and in many ways they are. None of us chooses where we are born, the family we come from, or the unpredictable events that unfold around us. But every single one of us retains the power to choose our response. And that, more than anything else, determines our character and our destiny. Two people can experience the same setback. One sees defeat, the other sees a challenge to grow stronger. The event is the same, yet their choices give birth to two entirely different lives. It is not the circumstance that defines us, it is the decision that follows it. Think for a moment about the simple yet profound reality of this truth. The job you now hold began with a decision. The friends who surround you are the result of choices you made about the kind of people you wanted near. Even your level of knowledge, your confidence, and your inner peace are shaped by what you have chosen to learn, believe, and practice each day. The mind is an obedient servant. It accepts what we feed it. If we choose to fill it with doubt, fear, and excuses, it will shape a life that reflects those very things. But if we choose to nourish it with purpose, gratitude, and vision, it begins to carve a path of strength and achievement. Every great life is built upon this simple principle. There are no miracles without motion, no success without a series of deliberate, often quiet choices made over time. We choose our habits, and our habits choose our future. A person who chooses to read for 15 minutes each day will, over years, hold the knowledge of a library. One who chooses to learn a new skill each month will find doors opening where none seemed to exist before. On the other hand, one who chooses to waste time, to complain, or to let fear dictate their decisions will inevitably find themselves trapped by the very walls they built. The truth is, every choice, no matter how small, carries with it a consequence. The man who chooses discipline over ease reaps strength. The one who chooses comfort over effort reaps stagnation. The woman who chooses to persist when others quit will discover potential she never knew she possessed. Life never punishes or rewards unjustly. It simply reflects. It reflects the sum of what we have decided to become. Choice is not a one-time event. It is a continuous act of creation. Each day is a blank canvas waiting for the brushstrokes of your decisions. You cannot paint a masterpiece with the same strokes that painted your disappointments. To change the picture, you must change the painter's intention. You must begin to ask yourself, what am I choosing today? What thoughts am I allowing to guide me? What actions will define my direction? Because whether you realize it or not, you are always choosing. Through action or inaction, through belief or doubt, through courage or fear. And yet, here lies the great tragedy of human potential. Most people never truly choose. They drift. They live by default, not by design. They wait for the world to decide for them. They allow opinions, expectations, and circumstances to mold their choices until they become spectators in their own lives. But the individuals who rise above, who create, who lead, who inspire, these are the ones who took hold of that invisible power, the ability to decide. They did not wait for permission. They chose. They chose to think differently, to act differently, to persist when it was difficult, to learn when it was uncomfortable. You are, at this very moment, the product of every choice you've ever made. And that realization, rather than burdening you, should liberate you. Because if your past choices built the present, then your future choices can build something entirely new. The power is and has always been in your hands. The world will shape itself around your decisions, as surely as water shapes itself to the vessel that holds it. So the next time you wonder where life is leading you, remember, it will always lead exactly where you choose it to go. Every morning begins as a quiet invitation, a chance to decide who you will be and what you will make of this day. Before the noise of the world intrudes, before the demands of life begin to press upon your mind, there exists a moment of stillness. In that moment, your thoughts are your own, and your choices are unshaped. It is there, in that space, that the foundation of your day, and ultimately your life, is laid. What most people never realize is that the first thoughts that greet them are far more powerful than they appear. They are not idle whispers. They are commands to the mind, instructions that set the tone for every action that follows. When you wake with gratitude, you open the door to abundance. When you wake with complaint, you invite struggle. When you choose focus, discipline, and purpose, your day begins to organize itself around achievement. But when you surrender to distraction, doubt, or laziness, your hours scatter like leaves in the wind. The quality of your life is built not upon the grand moments of decision, but upon these quiet, ordinary beginnings that you repeat every day. For it is not what you occasionally do that defines you. It is what you consistently choose to do. Thoughts are living things. They do not vanish into the air. They take root, grow, and manifest themselves in your reality. If you fill your mind with worry, you plant seeds of anxiety that bloom into hesitation. If you fill it with vision and purpose, you plant courage and resilience. Your dominant thoughts shape your beliefs, and your beliefs determine your choices. There is no escaping this chain of creation. A man or woman cannot think small, act small, and expect to live greatly. The invisible thought always precedes the visible result. Most people drift through life unaware of this principle. They believe they are victims of circumstance, that their moods and opportunities are dictated by forces beyond their control. But nothing could be further from the truth. Every emotion, every reaction, every path chosen begins as a thought, and thought is the one thing over which we have complete dominion. To master one's thinking is to master one's destiny. Those who learn to guard their minds as carefully as a jeweler guards his gems soon discover that life begins to align itself with their intentions. Consider how a single choice can alter the course of an entire lifetime. A student who decides to study an extra hour when others rest opens a door to opportunities unseen. A worker who chooses to approach his task with care and excellence, even when unnoticed, plants the seeds of future leadership. A parent who chooses patience instead of anger shapes the character of the next generation. In every moment, the power to choose rests silently in your hands. You may not control all the events of the world, but you always control your response, and that response shapes the outcome. You see, the mind is much like fertile soil. It does not discriminate between seeds of wisdom and weeds of fear. It simply grows whatever is planted. If you sow doubt, failure takes root. If you sow faith, success blossoms. The challenge is not in the soil, but in the gardener. Too many people spend their lives allowing weeds to overtake their garden because they never decided what they wanted to grow. They listen to the voices of others, to the limitations imposed by fear, and they wonder why their harvest is barren. Yet, the few who take time to nurture their inner thoughts, who cultivate purpose and persistence, soon find their lives overflowing with results that others call luck. But luck, in truth, is simply the visible evidence of unseen choices made long ago. Each day gives you hundreds of opportunities to decide. Will you react in frustration or respond with patience? Will you complain about the obstacle or seek the lesson within it? Will you chase pleasure or pursue purpose? These are not trivial matters. They are the blueprint of your destiny. What seems small today becomes significant tomorrow, for every choice carries a direction, and every direction carries a destination. The difference between mediocrity and greatness is not intelligence, wealth, or circumstance. It is the pattern of choices made over time. Great individuals do not possess more potential than others. They simply decide to use it. They choose effort when others choose ease. They choose learning when others choose ignorance. They choose discipline when others choose indulgence. And over years, these small daily choices compound into lives of extraordinary meaning. There is no secret formula hidden in books or whispered in private rooms. The truth is simple, and ancient life gives back what we put into it. Every choice you make either strengthens or weakens the person you are becoming. The habits of thought you cultivate today will determine the life you live tomorrow. You are not bound by your past. You are guided by your present decisions. Change your choices, and you change your life. So as you stand at the threshold of each new day, ask yourself not what the world owes you, but what you are willing to choose. Will you choose to think differently, to act with courage, to take responsibility for your direction? For in the quiet realm of thought, where decisions are born, the future is already being written. Each choice, however small, is a stroke upon the canvas of your destiny. And one day, you will look upon that canvas and realize it was never chance that painted your life, but the steady, deliberate brush of your own choices. There is a simple, unchanging truth that governs every human life. What you hold in your mind becomes the world you walk through. Every action, every achievement, every setback begins first as a single thought. Your mind is the control room of your destiny, and the choices you make within it determine the direction of your life. The chain of creation is clear and inescapable. Thoughts lead to choices, choices lead to actions, and actions produce results. This is not philosophy. It is the foundation of human experience. The world outside of you merely reflects the world you've built inside. Every thought that occupies your mind carries energy. Think of it as a seed, small, unseen, yet alive with potential. A thought of fear plants hesitation. A thought of courage plants progress. A thought of failure invites defeat, while a thought of victory summons strength. The mind cannot hold two opposing ideas at once. It must serve the master you appoint. If you constantly dwell on what could go wrong, you are quietly commanding your subconscious to seek those very outcomes. But if you choose to dwell on what can go right, your mind begins to align your perception, your will, and even your circumstances toward that vision. What you repeatedly think about is what you eventually become. The greatest error most people make is believing that thoughts are harmless. that they can entertain doubt or envy without consequence. But the mind is not a playground. It is fertile ground. Whatever you plant in it will grow. If you fill it with negativity, your life will produce frustration and limitation. If you fill it with purpose, gratitude, and determination, it will yield opportunities that seem miraculous. You do not attract what you wish for, you attract what you believe. What you think about most of the time. That is the essence of creation. Every choice we make springs from our dominant thoughts. A person who thinks in terms of limitation will always find a reason not to begin. A person who thinks in terms of possibility will always find a reason to try. The difference is not in opportunity but in outlook. Both individuals stand before the same challenge, yet one sees an obstacle and the other sees a stepping stone. The result of that perception becomes their future. This is why it is said that we are not defeated by circumstance, but by the thoughts we choose to entertain. The moment a thought becomes belief, it begins to shape your behavior, your posture, your tone, your decisions, all flow from what you believe to be true about yourself and the world. If you believe you are capable, you will act with confidence. If you believe you are powerless, you will hesitate even when success stands within reach. The universe responds not to your words, but to your conviction. It does not reward wishful thinking. It rewards clear, consistent belief followed by deliberate action. The chain from thought to action is invisible but unbreakable. Consider this: every invention, every work of art, every act of courage began as a single idea in someone's mind. Before the airplane lifted, it was imagined. Before a book was written, it was conceived. Before a dream became a reality, it was believed in. Nothing has ever been achieved in the outer world that was not first created in the inner one. And yet, so many people allow their inner world to be filled with noise, fear, gossip, doubt, and complaint, and then wonder why their outer world reflects confusion and struggle. If you wish to change your life, begin not with your actions but with your thinking. Direct your mind as you would direct a ship at sea. The captain does not drift, he steers. You must choose your thoughts as deliberately as a captain chooses his course. When you find yourself sinking into negativity, stop and correct it. Replace it with a thought that serves you, not one that sabotages you. The mind will obey, but only if you command it. And every time you do, you strengthen your ability to guide your life instead of being tossed by it. There will always be forces beyond your control. Changes in fortune, setbacks, disappointments, the unpredictable turns of life. But none of these have the power to defeat a person who has mastered their inner world. For even in adversity, you retain one priceless freedom: the power to choose your response. You cannot control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. You cannot control what happens, but you can control what it means to you. The greatest victories are not won in the world around us, but in the quiet dominion of the mind. Once you understand this law, you begin to see the pattern everywhere. Success, happiness, peace. These are not accidents, they are byproducts of right thinking. You begin to notice that confident people are not those who have never failed, but those who have refused to let failure define their thoughts. You realize that joyful people are not those who never suffer, but those who choose gratitude despite their pain. The difference lies in mental direction. The thoughts you choose to hold are like a compass, and they always point your life toward the destination they believe in. You have within you the capacity to think anything you wish, to believe in anything you choose, to imagine a life of meaning and purpose. The tragedy is not that people dream too big and fail. It is that they dream too small and succeed. To live a great life, you must learn to think greatly. Guard your mind with vigilance. Feed it with wisdom. Challenge it with purpose. Because the moment you take control of your thoughts, you take control of your future. And when you do, you'll discover that the invisible world of thought is the birthplace of every visible success. Most people spend their lives waiting for clarity to arrive, never realizing that clarity is not something that comes from outside. It is born the moment a decision is made. The human mind has an extraordinary ability to organize itself around a single, definite purpose. When you decide with conviction what you want, life begins to arrange the path before you. Opportunities that were once invisible come into view. People, resources, and circumstances begin to align in ways that almost feel miraculous. But when you refuse to decide, when you drift between options and hesitate between desires, everything around you remains clouded. The universe does not respond to confusion, it responds to commitment. The tragedy of indecision is one of the quietest forms of failure. It steals time, energy, and faith. So many people wander through their days asking, "What should I do?" or "Where should I go?" never realizing that their uncertainty is itself a decision. To not decide is to decide to remain the same. Every hour spent in hesitation is an hour surrendered to stagnation. Life rewards the decisive mind because the act of decision ignites movement. Once you know what you want, every thought and action begins to align with that purpose, like a compass finding true north. There is immense power in the moment of decision. It is the point where potential transforms into direction. Before that instant, everything is scattered. The thoughts, the desires, the fears, the doubts. But once you decide, all of that energy unites. It's as if 1,000 uncertain possibilities suddenly take shape and form a single path forward. You will never feel fully ready to choose. The conditions will never be perfect. But life does not honor those who wait. It honors those who move. A firm decision, made with courage, is worth more than a lifetime of hesitant thinking. When you make a true decision, you cut away every other possibility. The word decide itself comes from the Latin decider, which means to cut off. That is what a real choice does. It removes confusion by closing all other doors. And in that clarity, you find peace. You no longer waste energy wondering what could have been, because your entire focus turns toward what will be. The people who accomplish great things in life are not those who never doubt, but those who act even in the presence of doubt. They understand that progress begins not when everything is certain, but when they commit despite uncertainty. But the power of decision does not end with the mind. It extends into the physical world. Once you've made a decision, your behavior begins to change. You start to notice opportunities that align with your choice, and you take actions that bring you closer to it. You speak differently, walk differently, and think differently. The energy of commitment radiates through every part of your being, and that energy attracts results. You cannot truly commit to something and remain unchanged. The decision reshapes you from within, and that inner transformation becomes the foundation for external success. There will always be people who say, "What if I choose wrong?" But the truth is, the only wrong choice is the one never made. A wrong decision can be corrected, a non-decision cannot. Every step, even a misstep, contains information. You learn, you adjust, and you grow. But if you stand still, you learn nothing. Growth is motion. Direction, even if imperfect, is more valuable than paralysis. The mind, once it acts, gains feedback, and feedback refines wisdom. The road to mastery is not made of perfect choices. It is paved by consistent, courageous ones. Clarity of choice does something else. It eliminates unnecessary struggle. So many people exhaust themselves because they're fighting battles that don't matter. They chase every opportunity, listen to every opinion, and respond to every distraction, wondering why they feel lost. But once you decide what truly matters, everything else falls away. Distractions lose their pull. Opinions lose their weight. You no longer chase, you attract. For when you are clear about what you want, your energy becomes magnetic. The world respects a mind that knows where it's going. Each decision you make is a statement of identity. When you decide, you declare to yourself and to the world, "This is who I am." And the more aligned your choices are with that declaration, the stronger your character becomes. Great lives are not built by chance. They are built by choice, by people who have decided who they are long before the world tried to define them. They do not wait for permission to act. They grant it to themselves. They do not need guarantees, because their faith in their decision becomes the guarantee. The moment you truly decide, something profound happens within you. The noise quiets. The doubts fade into the background. Your mind stops scattering its energy and begins to concentrate it. And with that focus comes power. The kind of power that moves mountains, builds empires, and transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary ones. You begin to realize that clarity was never something you had to find. It was something you had to choose. So, when you stand at a crossroads, remember this: indecision is a thief. It steals your time, your peace, and your destiny. The world belongs not to those who wait for certainty, but to those who choose direction. Once you make that choice, once you say to yourself, "This is the way I will go," you set into motion forces that have been waiting for your command. The winds of chance become the winds of purpose, and your life, once uncertain, begins to move with remarkable precision. That is the quiet miracle of decision. It transforms confusion into clarity, hesitation into motion, and dreams into reality. There is a hidden strength in responsibility, a quiet force that separates those who rise from those who remain bound. Responsibility is not a burden, it is the gateway to freedom. The moment an individual accepts full ownership of their life, something extraordinary happens. They stop waiting for rescue. They stop blaming the world, their past, or their circumstances. They realize that while they cannot change everything around them, they can always change everything within them. That is where true power begins. Responsibility is not about guilt, it is about control. It is the act of reclaiming authorship of your own story. So many people wander through life believing that their situation is the fault of something or someone else. They say, "If only I had been born into a different family. If only I had more support. If only life were fairer." But life is never meant to be fair. It is meant to be balanced. For every difficulty, there is an opportunity. For every setback, there is a lesson. Those who succeed are not those who are given the easiest paths, but those who take responsibility for walking whatever path they are given. The moment you blame another for where you are, you surrender the power to change it. When you own your choices, your effort, and your attitude, you reclaim that power in full. Responsibility is the highest form of maturity. It requires courage to look at your life and say, "This is my doing, good or bad." It's far easier to find excuses than solutions. Excuses provide comfort. Responsibility demands growth. Excuses make you feel safe. Responsibility makes you strong. When you live in excuses, you live as a passenger. But when you accept responsibility, you step into the driver's seat. You begin to steer your life instead of being carried by the winds of circumstance. Responsibility transforms complaint into action and frustration into focus. Look at anyone who has achieved greatness, and you'll find a person who refused to point fingers. They did not spend their energy blaming others for their struggles. They spent it building strength. They understood that every obstacle was an opportunity to grow in wisdom, discipline, and resilience. When something went wrong, they didn't ask, "Who caused this?" They asked, "What can I learn from this?" That single shift in perspective changes everything. For the person who takes responsibility discovers that every challenge contains the seed of transformation. The reason responsibility is so powerful is because it forces awareness. When you take ownership of your actions and results, you begin to see patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior that shape your life. You begin to notice how small habits lead to large outcomes. You realize that your decisions, not your destiny, determine your direction. And once you see that clearly, you cannot unsee it. You begin to act with intention. You become careful with your words, mindful with your time, and deliberate with your energy. You stop living by reaction and start living by creation. But make no mistake, responsibility is not always comfortable. It will confront you with truths you may not wish to face. It will demand that you let go of resentment, envy, and blame. It will challenge you to forgive others, not because they deserve it, but because carrying bitterness keeps you chained to the past. Responsibility says, "Yes, pain has come into my life, but I will not let it define me." It demands discipline, self-awareness, and humility, the willingness to admit that improvement is always possible and that excuses serve no purpose. There is a profound peace that comes when you stop arguing with reality. Life will not always go your way. Things will happen that you cannot control. But when you take responsibility, you discover that while you cannot always choose the situation, you can always choose your response. That response determines whether the event becomes your prison or your turning point. When you accept responsibility, you turn adversity into a teacher. You begin to see hardship not as punishment, but as preparation. Every difficulty refines you, sharpens you, and strengthens the foundation upon which your future will stand. Taking responsibility also brings with it a rare kind of confidence, the confidence that comes from self-trust. When you stop blaming, you start building. You start to realize that you can rely on yourself, that you have within you the power to correct, to grow, and to adapt. You no longer wait for others to change, because you have changed yourself. You no longer need to control the world, because you have learned to control your own mind. And that kind of power, once earned, can never be taken away. The truth is, every great success begins with a moment of accountability. It begins when a person looks in the mirror and says, "If it is to be, it is up to me." Those 10 words carry more strength than 1,000 complaints. For when you speak them with conviction, you awaken something ancient and powerful within. The realization that your life is not happening to you, it is responding to you. The quality of that response is determined by the level of responsibility you are willing to take. Every time you choose responsibility over blame, you step closer to freedom. Every time you say, "This is mine to fix," instead of, "This is someone else's fault," you gain mastery over your destiny. Responsibility is not weight, it is wings. It does not confine you, it lifts you. It teaches you that you are not powerless, that no matter where you stand, you hold the authority to change direction. And in that realization lies one of the greatest gifts life can offer. The knowledge that everything you need to rise is already within you. Every individual reaches a point when they begin to wonder why their life is the way it is. Some look around and see comfort, joy, and progress. Others see struggle, limitation, and dissatisfaction. Yet, no matter where one stands, the truth remains the same. Life is a mirror, faithfully reflecting the choices we have made. There is no mystery in this law. It is constant, impartial, and unbreakable. The life you live today is the result of the choices you made yesterday, and the life you will live tomorrow depends on the choices you make today. It is tempting to believe that destiny is written by the stars, that the turns of fortune are guided by chance. But life is not a lottery, it is an equation. Each thought, each action, each decision adds or subtracts from the balance of our destiny. Those who understand this law rise above circumstance because they know that every choice, however small, carries within it the seed of transformation. The power to alter one's path does not lie in luck, but in decision. You are not bound by what you have been. You are bound only by what you continue to choose. When you begin to accept that where you are is exactly where you have chosen to be, an extraordinary clarity takes hold. You realize that change does not require permission. You do not have to wait for the world to align itself perfectly before you move. You can begin here and now by choosing differently. If your thoughts have been filled with doubt, you can choose faith. If your habits have been shaped by fear, you can choose courage. If your days have been spent in hesitation, you can choose action. Life bends to the will of choice as surely as light bends through a prism. It cannot resist the mind that knows where it is going. Every great change begins quietly, within the mind of an individual who decides that the old way will no longer do. The moment you make that decision, you declare independence from the habits and patterns that have held you back. You begin to see that every moment carries two paths, one that continues what has been, and one that begins what can be. The difference between stagnation and progress is not chance. It is the daily, deliberate act of choosing the higher path. The better thought, the stronger response. Life has a remarkable way of testing commitment. The moment you choose a higher direction, you will encounter obstacles. Not because the world is against you, but because growth demands resistance. Just as muscle strengthens under weight, character is refined through challenge. But when you remember that you have chosen your direction, obstacles become proof of progress, not signs of failure. Every difficulty becomes an opportunity to practice the strength of your choice. When the path grows hard, remind yourself that hardship is the echo of purpose. It means you are moving towards something greater than comfort. Many people long for change but fear the responsibility that comes with it. They wait for luck, for timing, for someone to rescue them. But waiting is also a choice to surrender control. Life rewards those who act. The moment you begin to make conscious choices, you awaken a sleeping power within yourself. The same energy that once fueled indecision becomes the fuel for creation. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, and think differently. Because now you understand that your future depends not on what happens to you, but on what you decide to do next. Choosing to take command of your life does not mean every step will be easy. It means every step will be yours. There is a deep satisfaction in that ownership, a peace that comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you are steering your ship. You may face storms, but you will not drift. You may stumble, but you will rise because your direction is chosen, not given. Those who take command of their choices stop living as spectators and begin to live as creators. They move from "I hope" to "I will." And in that shift, the impossible becomes possible. Every morning offers a new beginning. The sun rises not only to light the world, but to remind you that renewal is always possible. You cannot rewrite the past, but you can make the next chapter a masterpiece. You can decide to replace bitterness with gratitude, apathy with action, confusion with clarity. No matter how long you've walked the wrong path, one decision can begin a new direction. That is the beauty of choice. It doesn't care how many times you've fallen. It only responds when you rise. The law of choice is both merciful and exacting. It never denies you the chance to start again, yet it never spares you the results of your decisions. It is perfectly fair, for it gives each of us the same authority over our destiny. No one is excluded, no one is powerless. The difference between those who thrive and those who merely exist lies in how they use that authority. Each of us stands before the same open door every day, and what we walk into depends entirely on what we choose to think, to do, and to become. And so, wherever you stand at this moment, whether in joy or in struggle, remember that your life is not a sentence, it is a series of choices still unfolding. You are not trapped by your past, but guided by your present decisions. Choose differently, and you will live differently. Choose with faith, and life will rise to meet you. For in the grand design of existence, there is no greater power than the human ability to decide. The world reshapes itself in the image of your choices, and the future, no matter how uncertain, bows before the will of a mind that has chosen its path. Life in its purest form is a reflection of the choices we make. Every thought we think, every step we take, and every word we speak is a brushstroke on the canvas of our destiny. The law of choice is unyielding. It gives to each of us exactly what we decide, nothing more and nothing less. It does not favor the wealthy over the poor, the educated over the unlearned, or the fortunate over the forgotten. It responds only to decision, to conviction, and to persistence. You are and will always be the sum of what you have chosen to believe, to think, and to do. When you look back on your life, you will see a pattern, a trail of choices that led you here. Some may have been wise, others mistaken, but all were teachers. Every error strengthened you. Every disappointment refined you. Every success affirmed your ability to create. You are not a victim of chance, but an architect of purpose. The future does not wait for the lucky. It is built by the decisive. You cannot control every event, but you can always control your attitude, your effort, and your direction. That is where freedom lies, the freedom to choose again, to begin again, to rise again. So choose with awareness. Choose thoughts that empower you. Choose actions that align with your highest vision. Choose courage when fear whispers its familiar song. Choose gratitude when the world feels heavy. Choose persistence when progress seems distant. For every choice, however small, sets a new motion in the fabric of your life. The universe bends to those who decide with faith and act with purpose. Remember this: you are never truly stuck, never truly lost, never truly finished. You are always one decision away from a new direction, one choice away from a better life. The law of choice does not judge, it simply delivers. Choose wisely, choose bravely, and choose consciously. For in the end, the greatest truth of all is this: you are exactly where you choose to be, and the power to change that, to create whatever comes next, has always been yours.